We begin today with exactly the outrage that you would expect from the left. The left is completely outraged about this. We are talking screaming to the heavens, or below. We're talking about people who are just freaking out, losing their minds. One of the videos going around me, this I think encapsulates the response of much of the left, which is just a rage cry of horror at the simple fact that this issue has now been returned to the states, because nobody, the amount of ignorance and lies that are being purveyed by the left on this particular issue, truly insane. One, they keep saying that the Supreme Court just outlawed abortion. The Supreme Court did not outlaw abortion. The Supreme Court delegated it back to the states. The Supreme Court clearly cannot outlaw abortion. It doesn't have the power to outlaw abortion. So that's number one. You're seeing the left just tell sheer lies. You'll see a meme going around about how these states are going to bar people from having removals of ectopic pregnancies, or if you've had a miscarriage and you have to have some sort of procedure to get the miscarried fetus removed from the uterus, that this is going to count as an abortion. There's not a single state. Show me the legislative language that does this. It does not exist. So the left is just lying about this, because they have to lie about this, because again, the truth is that once you start talking about the moral abomination that is abortion, your arguments start to look a lot less popular. The fact they even have to have these arguments is what's making the left so angry today. They don't want to have these arguments, because it turns out, as we'll talk about in a second, the people who are truly extreme on this issue, like truly morally extreme on this issue, are members of the left. So instead, it's rage cries to heaven. So here's one TikTok liberal, I think, encapsulating the entire reaction of the media, Democratic Party, and corporate America today. I think this person should be making all policy in the United States, probably. Probably that's a good idea. Speaking of our greatest policymakers, you have celebrity class coming out and being very upset. So Olivia Rodrigo, who I will admit I had not heard of until the last 5 minutes because I'm not a teeny bopper. Olivia Rodrigo was with another person named Lily Allen. And I will admit that I had not heard of Lily Allen either. In fact, I was mixing her up with Lily Tomlin when I was looking this up. But apparently they are both people who dress like 17-year-old teeny boppers and prance around while breathing heavily into microphones, recording songs that do not have capital letters in them. If you look at Olivia Rodrigo's song list, apparently she's like E.E. Cummings. All capital letters are forbidden. It's like favorite crime, no capital F, no favorite C. Good for you, no capital G. U is spelled letter U, and 4 is the number 4. So, brilliant expositors on the state of American law and the existential issue of when human life begins. Olivia Rodrigo and Lily Allen, they go to a concert where they prance around in two pieces and talk about how abortion is really, 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 really important, and also F those justices, F them. Yes, we have great thinkers like Samuel Alito on the one side, and we have Olivia Rodrigo on the other.
This song goes out to the justices, Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, Neil Gorsuch.
Oh, wow, Lily Allen's flipping people off. Heroism.
And Brett Kavanaugh. We hate you.
So they're singing, the song is F you. Well, I mean, slow clap for the heroism involved in advocating for the killing of the unborn en masse by singing in front of people for money. Just very, very, very stellar stuff. Well, you got a lot of rich pop stars out there who are trying to tell you what you should think about abortion. But here's the thing. You probably shouldn't want anyone telling you what you ought to think. And big tech, big government, they have an interest in doing this. One of the ways they do this, they keep a log of every single thing you do online. It's pretty creepy. It's pretty wild. But your internet provider like AT&T or Comcast is allowed to store logs of every website you've ever visited. They can legally sell that data to anyone, which is why I use ExpressVPN, because my data is my business. ExpressVPN reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers, so your internet provider can't see or log what you do online. Now, some of you might be wondering, hold up. If I'm routing all my data through a VPN, doesn't the VPN actually monitor what I'm doing? Well, you're right to wonder about that, because a lot of VPNs claim to have a no logs policy, but then they actually log customer activity. But ExpressVPN does not do that. They use trusted server technology. They were the first major VPN provider to engineer all of their VPN servers to run in RAM, which makes it impossible for their VPN servers to store any data, including logs of any ExpressVPN customer. ExpressVPN is super easy to use. Like, check this out. So I open up my phone. I open up my ExpressVPN app, and behold, here it is. But right now it says I'm not connected. Sad face. So I hit the button. Boom. Connected. Protected. It's that simple. don't have to take my or ExpressVPN's word for it. ExpressVPN is so confident in their no-logs claim, they even had one of the biggest assurance firms, PwC, audit their technology. So stop letting people keep logs of what you do online. Visit expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show right now. Find out how you can get 3 months for free. Some of the other moral arguments being made by the freaked out left, Ana Navarro, who used to be considered a Republican. I'm not sure why. She was on The View, the repository of all human stupidity. And she actually made the argument that we definitely 100% need abortion because she has Down syndrome family members, which sounds horrifically eugenic and also pretty evil. Like, there's some members of my family who I'm not super fond of. I also have never made the public argument that they should probably have been killed in the womb. That seems awkward.
I am not anybody to tell you what you need to do with your life or with your uterus. And because I have a family with a lot of special needs kids. I have a brother who's 57 and has the mental and motor skills of a 1-year-old. And I know what that means financially, emotionally, physically for a family. And I know not all families can do it. And I have a step-granddaughter who was born with Down syndrome. And you know what? It is very difficult in Florida to get services.
Yeah, that argument doesn't come out of your mouth, Anna, the way that you think that it does. I have a brother, and he has Down syndrome. Man, it would be easier if he were dead. Yeah, that doesn't sound quite as good, I think, out of your face as it did when it was in your head. Meanwhile, you have Martha Raddatz and ABC News lashing out at all of this. Again, the media is just a wing of the Democratic Party, which if you didn't believe me, I mean, one of the leading expositors of abortion is a lady named Kate Smith. She used to be a reporter for CBS News. I mean, she was literally a frontline, quote unquote, objective news reporter, and now she works for a pro-abortion group because this is the media en masse. Here's Martha Raddatz at ABC News lashing out.
On Friday morning, women in this country, like they have for nearly 50 years, woke up with a constitutional right to abortion, a right enshrined by the Supreme Court's 1973 decision in Roe v. Wade and reaffirmed again and again. But just after 10 a.m. on Friday, a legal earthquake, the court stripping women of that fundamental right.
Okay, it's not a fundamental right. That's the whole point of the case. The whole point of the case is that it is not a fundamental right. Yeah, I love how the entire media, they're taking their lead, as you'll see, from the Democratic Party, right? The Democratic Party is making the argument that a fundamental right existed and then it didn't exist. Okay, but by that logic, by that same exact logic, there was a fundamental right in the United States for states to segregate their trolley cars. And then that right was stripped in Brown versus Board. That is not the way any of this works. Either it's in the Constitution or it's not in the Constitution. Abortion is not in the Constitution. It is not a fundamental right. It was never a fundamental right. You can't make a moral argument that it was that argument does not exist on a moral level, and it doesn't exist on a constitutional legal level. But the idea is that women everywhere are going to be put under the boot heel by all of this, that women everywhere have now been denied equality. This was the argument of the dissent, by the way. And I want to take just a moment to, I think, explicate this argument, because it really does demonstrate how for the left, abortion is a sacramental issue. It is a sacrament. It's not that abortion is something sad, rare, but legal, right? It's instead, what it is supposed to be is a sacrament. It is an active good, because every abortion is a statement that females will not be put under the heel of human biology, that human biology runs counter to women's aspirations, and therefore abortion is necessary, deeply necessary, in order to free women of the evils of the reality of human biology. This is why the pro-abortion left will treat pregnancy as an impediment and childbearing and child rearing as a burden. It's why they use this sort of language. By the way, I don't think most human beings resonate to. Most people see children as a gift. They see pregnancy as an active good. But for the left, these things are active bads. And the reason that they are active bads is because the feminist movement, since particularly the 1950s and 60s, starting with Simone de Beauvoir and moving forward through Betty Friedan, has basically considered motherhood to be a bad thing. They have said that the chief obstacle to human equality is that women have had to bear children, that this is a bad thing. And if we could only obliterate the sex distinction between men and women, suddenly women would lead freer, happier, more fulfilled lives. Now, the feminist promise has been a lie. It has not been true. By every available metric, women are less happy now than they were in, say, 1970. By every available metric, we're talking self-surveys, the happiness level of American women has declined over the period since Roe became actual legal law in the United States. But it's a deeply held part of the left's fundamental belief system, which is that you are a free-floating bag of identity, and you get to define yourself any way that you want, and any impediment to that identity is therefore evil. And that impediment could be your own child growing in the womb. If that impediment is your own child growing in the womb, we need to get rid of it. This is why abortion is supremely important. You can hear this in the words of the second wave feminists. The second wave feminists made this perfectly clear. I mean, Simone de Beauvoir was arguing in 1953, quote, "The female is a woman insofar as she feels herself as such. Some essential biological givens are not part of her lived situation. For example, the structure of the ovum is not reflected in it. By contrast, an organ of slight biological importance like the clitoris plays a primary role in it. Nature does not define woman. It is she who defines herself by reclaiming nature for herself in her affectivity." The only reason, according to Simone de Beauvoir, that women were actually becoming mothers and wives is because of cultural indoctrination, and that had to stop. So you can see why abortion is so wildly important to the left. It underlies the entire obliteration of the sex distinction between male and female, which is supposed to be an impediment to human happiness, according to the left. So this is why they're really, really, really angry. MSNBC's Tiffany Cross, she continued along these lines. She says that, what happened here was 4 men and a handmaiden, because Amy Coney Barrett's now a handmaiden. Good feministing here. But when I say good feministing, I think what people fail to understand is that first wave feminism would argue that it's actually quite sexist to label Amy Coney Barrett, a mother of 7, and a woman who is on the Supreme Court, a handmaiden. But according to the second and third wave feminists, she is a handmaiden because she's been indoctrinated. She's like, it's the same way that the left treats a conservative black person or a conservative Jew. Anybody who is a member of an identified minority by the left who does not side with the left is a traitor. It's somebody who's been indoctrinated by the system and is in fact a handmaiden. So there's perfect sincerity when Tiffany Cross says this over at MSNBC, no matter how vile it is.
Today, for the first time in 49 years, American women are waking up with less rights than we had yesterday after the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade. Now, people across the country have taken to the streets protesting this move. The majority of Americans did not want the court to overturn Roe v. Wade. A majority of Americans. But 4 men who will never bear children and 1 handmaiden decided for an entire country that their Christian doctrine is the only way.
Okay, their Christian doctrine is the only... no, that's not what they decided. If they decided their Christian doctrine was the only way, they would have barred abortion explicitly by encoding pro-life positions in the 14th Amendment. So clearly they didn't. In fact, nobody even made that argument. Thomas didn't even make that argument. And yet, here she is just expositing these lies. By the way, there's a certain irony to her saying 4 men who couldn't bear children and a woman who's a handmaiden. There are 2 other women on the court, by the way. Neither of them have children. And Sonia Sotomayor does not have children. Elena Kagan does not have children. But apparently, they have more to say about childbearing and rearing than Amy Coney Barrett, who has 7 of them. We're in a battle for the culture and for our values. Like and subscribe to help keep our videos on the front line of the fight and top of your feed.